to start things off, I felt like it would be super fun for us to talk about Batman. But unfortunately, Phoenix was not able to get out and watch the new Batman movie that just dropped. And
3 hours, man.
I know.
3 hour. Well, here's the issue. So it's 3 hours, which
It's
is a time
crazy.
commitment. But my wife wants to see it too, and we're
Hmm.
both just slammed schedule wise. So finding time over the weekend to try get a 3 hour movie in just has not been something in the cards right
Dude,
now.
the last half hour, I had to go to the bathroom so bad, but I did. I don't know how I was able to not
Well, that's
pop.
why you get the really big cup. So then when you inevitably
Yeah.
have to go, you just do your thing.
Listen, I used to work at a movie theater, ask Phoenix. I wouldn't want to have to clean that, grab that cup afterwards, cleaning that theater. So shout out to all of my fellow movie theater peeps. But yeah, so I figured let's talk Batman anyways. Or Phoenix threw the idea at me, and I thought it would be super cool for us to kind of each pick out our favorite Batman movie. We're going down the super nostalgia trip.
Well, before we do that, I do want to get your opinion because I haven't talked to you at all about the new movie, and I certainly don't
Oh
want you to
yeah,
spoil it
no,
for me.
no, no. Hmm.
But I mean, is it what you were kind of hoping out of that movie, or did you feel like anything was disappointing, or did you go into it like low expectations and it exceeded those? Like, I know you're a bigger. I hate to say you're a bigger Batman fan than me because I'm definitely a Batman fan, but I
My
know
favorite
in your
superhero.
yeah, he's probably your top guy.
He's
So,
probably what
in
your
your
second,
opinion,
probably your second favorite behind Spider-Man.
yeah, Spidey's probably always gonna have a top spot, but Batman's like right up there.
He's my favorite. I'm glad you asked. I mean, I wasn't going to, just give you my thoughts because I wanted you to kind of enjoy it for yourself. But for very surface level opinions on it, it's very mixed. I would say for like maybe the first half an hour to the first hour, I was thinking it was going to be the greatest Batman movie I had ever seen. It really gets things like aesthetic, environment, themes. It really gets all that stuff right when it comes to Batman. But unfortunately for me, in my opinion, towards the latter end of the movie, it starts to make a few decisions that are like not necessarily bad, but it's just a little uninteresting.
Okay.
And that's pretty much it. Like all of the acting is incredible. Like I loved Zoe Kravitz. I loved Robert Pattinson was a really good Batman. Trying to be as non-spoilery as I can. Like the Penguin
Sure.
was awesome. The Riddler was awesome.
I did not realize until like 2 weeks ago that the Penguin was freaking Colin
It's
Farrell.
Colin Farrell
Like,
and Paul Dano as the Riddler.
yeah, Paul Dano I knew,
He's
but
awesome,
freaking
man.
that makeup for Colin Farrell is freaking ridiculous.
Colin
Like,
Farrell was so good they're giving him his own TV show.
really?
Yeah, yeah. Some sort of I think they're calling it Gotham PD or something, which is very similar to that other Gotham show.
I
I don't
heard he
know.
was kind of like with the comic relief in that movie a little bit.
He was awesome. He's like, yeah, he was. The movie does a great job of just kind of getting characters right. Like you were saying, like Penguin feels very penguiny, even though he doesn't smoke in the entire movie, which apparently Warner Brothers, like when they gave this director the reins for the movie, they were like, he cannot smoke. I guess that was one of the few things that
Yeah, it's a big faux pas nowadays.
yeah. But yeah, man, like Penguin's awesome. The Riddler's really good, but he's definitely a different take. So
Hmm.
I personally enjoyed him, but I could very easily see some people not, particularly enjoy him.
All right. And you said you like Pattinson. Like, where would he rank for you? Like, just in regards to all the Batmans out there that we've seen live action wise.
Um, it's really hard because, again, I don't want to give anything away. He plays a good Batman, but they don't really give you much of the Bruce Wayne, archetype. So it's almost, in my opinion, it's almost impossible to say whether he was a good Bruce Wayne or not. Which I don't know if that I don't want that to spoil for you, but like,
Yeah, that won't spoil it. I mean, I guess I'm asking because I've been
Hmm.
trying to, avoid the spoiler reviews and whatnot, but I've definitely been trying to get different takes from people, kind of seeing how they feel about, like, Pattinson's performance and whatnot. And overall, I hear favorable things, but I'm hearing very mixed things on his Bruce take in particular. Like, most people
There,
like him as Batman,
there
but
is no
some
Bruce take.
people
There
I've
is.
had some. There's a couple of things I've watched from certain reviewers that were acting like they really like this very kind of subdued, subtle, brooding Bruce, which other people are like, I don't know, it leaves a lot to be desired. So I was kind of curious on where you stood
He's
on it.
basically. What I got from this movie is that they very much were getting across the idea that this Batman had almost totally engulfed Bruce Wayne,
Hmm.
like he really like they even oh gosh, I was gonna say there's a scene. There's even parts where he's kind of negligent with his company,
Hmm.
so he's very, oh, gosh, he's very untied to his Bruce Wayne alter ego, or I guess Batman would be the alter ego, but like
Well, that's the whole point, though, isn't it? Like, Bruce Wayne really is the alter ego. Like,
yes.
Batman is who he really
And I
is.
like that. I actually like that
Yeah.
aspect of the movie. It makes it more realistic. If you would think a guy wearing tights, going out, climbing rooftops, beating up criminals with his hands, I could imagine that person's got a few screws loose, and it would be really
Hmm.
hard for them to hide in society. Like it's not a stretch to imagine he would have problems blending in.
Right. How old is he supposed to be in this movie? Like, I know it's supposed to be like his second year being Batman, but as like a character, like how old is his Bruce Wayne? He's in like his 20s, his 30s? Because I know Pattinson is probably like his late 30s at this
I
point.
thought he was like early mid 30s. Is he that
Is
old?
he?
Is he older? Oh, I don't know
I didn't
how
think
old
I
he
was.
is.
I don't know. That means I'm older than Pattinson. Oh no. Ugh.
I,
Thought I was younger.
I thought he just played someone his age. I mean, I didn't really.
Well, I guess I ask because I think that kind of depends on how I would, I don't know, picture his Bruce Wayne fitting into that society. Like if he's a really young Bruce Wayne and he hasn't figured out kind of the purpose of the Bruce Wayne, like, what's a good way to say this? That alter ego, then I can kind of see how maybe he just gets, caught up in the whole Batman side of things. But
I
if he's a Bruce
definitely
Wayne who's in his like late 30s, then you would think he's probably got more of a reign on things at that
I
point. But
definitely
once again, I'm
think
speaking without seeing the movie.
I definitely think in the movie there is a sense that he does begin to see the importance of the Bruce Wayne alter ego. So I do think he is probably fairly young. He does seem like maybe he's meant to be like mid to late 20s, maybe early 30s.
Mm.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
not meant to be an older person. He does seem like someone who's learning on the move, and again they do give you the sense that he sees how shoot, I can't think of the word. He sees how vulnerable the Bruce Wayne aspect of him is.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. Was there anything else? Sorry.
No, that's all good. As I know, it's probably hard for you to really get into details without, edging into spoiler territory, and I don't want you to do that.
But
So, how do you think he compares to like, Christian Bale? Like, I'm assuming that's who the Batman you probably would have put up there, kind of like high-ranking Batman live-action actors up till now. So, do you think he is better than Bale, less than Bale, equivalent?
um, oh man, that's tough. I mean,
Or is Bale not your, runner-up?
Bale is not my favorite Batman.
Oh, well, then who would that be?
I'm probably out on alone on this. I always really liked Val Kilmer. I thought Val Kilmer was a fine Batman, and I even like Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
I think Keaton and well, never mind. My favorite Batman is Kevin Conroy. But if we're talking live action Batman, I would say Keaton or Kilmer are like my favorites, and then just below that would be Bale. Bale was not a bad. I was kind of indifferent on Bale.
So Pattinson kind of ranks like third or fourth then for you.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely above Clooney. He's definitely above Ben Affleck. Oh my gosh.
Okay, so I'm really gonna probably be in the minority for this. Although I think he's been in some of the worst Batman movies, I think my favorite Batman is probably Ben Affleck.
Really?
Like the more I think about like, and part of it maybe it's just the aesthetic of it. Like, and that's probably I think it's hard for me right now. And not that I don't think I'm going to like the new movie, but Pattinson just I don't know. He doesn't have for me look like Batman. I don't know. He looks a little too young. And I think part of it is like okay, if I could really think of this as okay, it's just his first couple of years as Batman. He's gonna age up and grow into this more mature Batman. That'd be one thing, but Pattinson's always going to have that baby face. He's
Hmm.
always going to seem like a young Batman, even when he's, a veteran. So I think that's what I liked about Affleck was he had that, I mean, that experienced look, but I don't know, he had some, I don't know.
I
He had,
think they're both kind of stinted by the movies they were in. Like I feel
yeah,
like
well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not judging the movie right now. Like, if we're talking about Batman movies,
mhm.
nothing regarding Affleck would be on the table for me.
I feel like
I'm just
Affleck.
looking purely at, the performances that, they had
No,
to
I
work
get what you're
with
saying.
and the way they looked.
Well, the reason why I don't put Affleck up towards my top is not because of him himself. It's because the movies he was in were not great. Like, and you could say that's kind of unfair way of looking at Affleck. And maybe I'm looking at Pattinson more favorably because the movie he was in was just
Mhm.
better.
Sure, I mean you have favor by association just because he was in a better, production. So I get that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way I feel. Pattinson was fine. I mean, I more like the idea that just like they get the Batman character right. I think that's what makes it feel like he's a good
Hmm.
Batman. He's not like fantastic, but they get him right. They get his thematically he's correct. One cool thing about the movie is I won't go into specifics, but they definitely make Batman more the world's greatest detective in this one, which I'm curious to see if you like that aspect or dislike it. He,
I mean, I if it plays out well, I'm gonna like that because that's definitely a core part of Batman's character. Um,
this Batman is definitely smarter than a lot of other Batmans. But so yeah, what else did you want to go straight into my movie?
yeah, I mean, I know you were kind of want to get into like what your favorite like overall Batman movie is.
Hmm.
So yeah, go to that. We can kind of branch off from there.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm actually really excited to talk about this movie. I feel like it's a Batman movie that a lot of people overlook, mainly because it is animated. I feel like a lot of people look over a lot of the DC animated films. And it's the same thing with the Marvel stuff, right? Like, I would say a lot of those movies get looked over. Oh, certain movies I feel like get looked over. Like, did you ever get to see, what was it, Doctor Strange? Did you ever see the Doctor Strange animated movie?
I did. I tell you, the Marvel animated doesn't usually do it for me as much. Like they're usually fine, but I mean, I would definitely lean on if we're talking about animated feature length films,
Mm-hmm.
then the DC universe by far has the better ones. Like you're right. I know where you're going with your animated series one, but even just like some of the like more standalone ones, like was it Under the Red Hood? I thought was really
Mm-hmm.
good.
That was good.
Um, and I mean, there's a bunch of them. Oh man, I haven't watched the newest ones at the Long Halloween. Have you seen that yet?
No, no.
I've heard pretty good things about that. I liked the one they did recently. It was what Batman versus the Ninja Turtles or something.
I didn't get to watch that one.
That
That
one
was a
was pretty
comic,
fun
I
too.
think.
Yeah, yeah, it was based off one of the old comics. But yeah, I mean, I like where DC does with the animated, usually more so than a lot of their, actual live action stuff. So I can definitely get behind that. But I mean, most people, I mean, they still have the stigma that an animated film is a children's film or children's kind of form of entertainment, which
Mm-hmm.
I think that paradigm has shifted a lot over the past 10, 15 years or so. But you still got that stigma. And I think best, especially at the time that I don't know if you said it yet. Do well, go into your movie. I'm
Yeah.
going to jump ahead if I
No,
do.
I guess just some basic info on it. I mean, the reason why this movie is so good is like as you were saying is a lot of its ties to other fantastic series as the animated series was. I mean, I think me and you would agree that that's a fantastic TV show, one of the
I don't think
all-time.
you officially said the name of the movie.
Oh, Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to avoid it because you hadn't done the big reveal
No,
yet.
no, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Batman: Mask of the Phantasm.
mhm.
If you don't know, the movie was co-directed by two people, by Eric Radomski, who is the co-creator of the animated series. So that's why it's so fantastically tied into that show. It was also directed by Bruce Timm, who's basically, from what I've read and understand, he's basically one of the major creators of the entire DC animated universe.
Yep.
Which is kind of cool. Did he have ties to the comics, or I don't know?
Didn't he? I could be wrong.
I'm pretty sure.
I'm always bad about remembering comic authors.
I'm pretty sure he probably has ties to that or something. But yeah, once again, it's basically Batman Mask of the Phantasm is based on Batman the Animated Series. It's almost like an extension, although I'm sure it takes a few liberties here or there. But essentially, the movie came out in 1993, which was almost a year after I was born. Haha, there you go.
Make me feel old, Chaz.
I know. That's how old this movie is. A cool little tidbit is this was actually the first DC animated movie to release theatrically. And basically, they kind of pushed it out the door very quickly. And due to them doing that, it actually failed at the box office. But after its home media release, it became so successful that it basically paved the way for Batman and Mr. Freeze, Sub-Zero, which was another great movie that I need to watch that one. Actually, I haven't watched that one in a long time. And another movie it helped kind of fund is Mystery of the Batwoman. What about you? Have you get to see any of those?
I've seen the Sub-Zero one. I haven't seen the Batman one. Because I picked up the Blu-ray a while back of the whole animated series, and it had Mask of the Phantasm in there, and it had Sub-Zero. But I don't think it had the Batwoman one.
I had that VHS, the black case copy for Mask of the Phantasm.
Yeah.
I still have it in my garage. But,
yeah, I did too.
But like every time I would watch it, it would always play the trailer for Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero, and that was like the coolest freaking trailer. I kind of remember just the voice acting and all that stuff that they kind of had for it. But that's basically all the notes I had. I mean, what about you? Were there any like major things that you remember about the movie that we can go into?
I mean, it's been a while since I've watched it in earnest. I mean, I definitely remember like elements of it. I mean, what always kind of sells through with that movie is just Kevin Conroy and Hamill, like, and that's not just looking at the movie. Like, I mean, I think most people, if they can separate the animated facet from the live action, those are probably two of the truest incarnations of those two characters. Like, there's other good iterations of them and reimaginations, but I think you said it earlier, Conroy is Batman to me.
He's so good.
I mean, granted, it's his voice and acting married with the visuals of the show. Like, I can't really separate those. I mean, of course, he was also the voice in the Arkham series, and same thing with Hamill. So those incarnations of the characters, I think, truly fit, at least how I've always imagined Batman. But that's what I've grown up with, too. I think that's kind of why, I don't know, Pattinson, it's hard for me to really feel attached to really any Batman. Like, there's an aesthetic to it and just like a personality to it. None of them are Conroy. I mean, to be fair, no one's ever gonna be Conroy, but no one even really feels like it gets close to me. I feel like at least like Affleck, from a stylistic standpoint, kind of had that look. He kind of looked like the animated series, a little thicker.
I can see that.
He kind of moved a little more like the Arkham Batman. And honestly, I liked his portrayal of both Batman and Bruce. He got terrible material, but that was probably the closest live action Batman I've seen that harkens back to the Kevin Conroy days from an aesthetic. Once again, the way they treated those characters, completely different. But that's why I base almost every Batman thing off of now is, does it have those animated series vibes? Can I picture that Kevin Conroy Batman on this new actor? And honestly, that's probably very unfair of me. I probably need to be a little more open as far as letting these actors kind of do their own thing with it and reimagine the character, but that's what I grew up with, man. I was a kid in the 90s watching animated series every afternoon. So, I don't know. And then Hamill was great.
Yeah. I feel like, as you were saying, the reason why this movie kind of... I mean, truly, in my opinion, the standout for this movie is Batman and Bruce Wayne. It really nails... It nails not just of that character, but it nails, like, showing the different faces of each character in the movie, like Kevin Conroy, like, perfectly balanced, like the scenes where he's playing Bruce the billionaire playboy, and then there's other scenes where he's playing like the tortured and grieving son. I
feel like that was one of the few times like it felt like Bruce Wayne wasn't always the alter ego. Like, if you think about it in most kind of incarnations, especially nowadays, like Bruce Wayne, once again, that's the mask, right? Batman's the true character, and then
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Wayne's the alter ego. But in that movie, it showed him trying to actually be Bruce Wayne. I mean, stepping out of the
Dude,
Batman light a little bit.
there's a scene that's so incredible every time I watch it. There's a scene where Bruce is, falling head over heels over Andrea Beaumont,
Hmm.
spoilers, sorry guys, she plays the Phantasm in the movie.
Oh no, no, I can't watch it.
Spoilers for almost 30 year. Jeez, that movie's almost 30 years old.
My heart.
I know. But yeah, there's a scene where Bruce, of course, he makes this promise to his parents that I don't know exactly what the promise was, but I'm guessing it has something to do with he's gonna fight crime and gain, prevent other children or other people from having to go through what he's been put through. And there's this incredible scene where he falls heads over heels with Andrea Beaumont, and he's like at their
Yeah, the grave.
he's
Right?
at the graveyard, yeah, and he's like at their tombstone, like in the rain on his knees, like begging them to
Why
like,
can't I be happy?
yeah, or that he says, I want to fulfill your promise, but something happened that I wasn't expecting. I became happy,
Hmm.
and it's just like a really like heartfelt, like scene of this guy who has this thing that he knows he needs to do, but is his happiness something important to him or something that he should seek out? And is it like is he letting down his parents? And like it's an incredible scene. And then Andrea, or he says just give me give me a message or something, and she's like, they already did, or she's like, I'm your message, it's okay to let go or something. And
Mm.
like scenes like that are just like
So emotional.
like so emotional. It's the I will say like if you dislike the brooding, like just emo sadness of Batman, this is probably like top tier emo Batman. He's just like, but the good thing is
Oh,
it's not just that though. They're good.
no, no, go for it.
I was just saying it's not just like the heights of his sadness and like his vengeance and regrets and everything is also offset in the movie by the love he has with Andrea and him and all the stuff going on between them. So it's like a perfect dichotomy of him, and it's even further enhanced because she's going through all of the exact same things he's going through. That's why it's such a like it's almost like they're almost too perfect of a couple for each other because they both have almost the exact same motivations. They're both equally as in love with one another, but they're both out seeking revenge. And revenge is just like at the end scene where she wants to kill the Joker or something. He's like, Andrea, revenge won't do this, and she's like, it's too late for me. And it sounds just like it's coming out of his mouth,
Mhm.
And in a way that's really cool because it takes the whole idea of Batman's revenge. He's always vengeance. I am vengeance. And it kind
Yeah,
of,
she kind of is what Batman would have been if, he didn't have the same
yeah.
code, the same restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
He basically is looking at a mirror or, a different, path that he could have taken and how he kind of pulled away from that. But it's heartbreaking to kind of see how that all kind of played out, that really he can't ever be happy based upon
Mm-hmm.
the life and the responsibilities he's got to live up to. And some of the best superhero movies are built on that. Like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of Spider-Man stories, same thing. Like he tries to balance his love life and his friends and all this other stuff to have both worlds, and it's kind of realizing that you can't always have both worlds. Batman definitely takes that more extreme where he just gives up pretty much everything but
Mm-hmm.
Batman. But still,
And
it's always fun to see that dichotomy.
what's really cool in this movie is that you have all of this like really deep emotional scarring, and you have all these people that are like, trying to seek vengeance or seeking closure with things, and then just
Hmm.
in the middle of this movie just drop the Joker, and like that's what this movie is. It's just like all this like emotional drama, and then it's just like the Joker just in the middle, just like not giving a crap about what everyone's dealing with. And
Right.
Mark Hamill is just so, again, like he's perfect, man. Mark Hamill is just, there isn't a better Joker. There just is not.
Well, of that variety, like I'm not gonna try to downplay any of the other great Joker performances out there. Like you can't really compare like a Hamill Joker to a Ledger Joker to even like a Joaquin Phoenix Joker. Like they all did amazing jobs, but very different takes on it. I mean, my personal favorite take is Hamill, but once again, that's clouded in nostalgia. And even with that being said, he is still a fantastic Joker.
I
But
just
anyway,
think
so
I just think what it's not necessarily the difference in acting. I mean, obviously Heath Ledger is a great actor. Obviously Jack Nicholson is a
they're
great.
different characters. Like
Yeah.
they are not the same Joker. Just like not every Batman is the same Batman. Like the Bale Batman is not the animated series Batman. That doesn't make him a bad Batman. Just makes him a different Batman. They were
Mhm.
all still acted well. So trying to argue which one is better is often a moot point. Like you're gonna have to, have your preferences on what kind of, universe you like Batman in versus what kind of, stylistic preferences you have. And for me, it's always gonna kind of come back to that animated series stuff. And a lot of it, I'll say it again, it's nostalgia. I grew up with it, but there was just an innate quality and just passion to what that team did, Hamill and Conroy and all those guys.
Mhm.
Um, so I have a question for you before you get too far into anything else.
Yeah.
So you kind of mentioned it earlier that I mean one of the I guess drawbacks to Mask of the Phantasm is, I mean, drawback's such a bad way to say this because in many ways this was also the boon to it, but the fact that it was animated, right?
Mhm.
What if they could release that movie, even if they released it now, but in a live action format? Do you think that would play as well, or is that something that really only works either like in an animated format, or only works with Conroy and Hamill, or could they adapt that iteration and that story to the big screen now? And do you think it would be successful?
I don't. I don't see it. I feel like just the animated form or the animated form, way of making movies or TV shows. I feel I can't quite necessarily put my finger on it, but there's a certain way that they can find ways of condensing information or condensing scenes that I don't know. Like I can't explain it. Like that movie is only an hour 15 minutes long, and you compare that to what I just watched in The Batman, which is which is like 3 hours, and it's like I don't really necessarily think there was a big difference in like the amount of information or emotion that's gotten across. I think that's what the benefit of animated form is that you can do so much more with that. And let's be honest, I mean comics are
Yeah.
closer to cartoons than they are real life, so maybe it's easier to get across things from comics to animated form.
I inherently I feel like I want to disagree with that. I'm just trying to form my thoughts on why.
You mean with
Here's the
with
thing.
there being with the
Well, with
condensing?
yeah, I don't think the condensing is necessarily a a what's how do I want to say this? Like a cause and effect kind of thing because it's animation, they're able to condense things more. Like part of it is the audience they're trying to put it towards. They are trying to tell a shorter story. Like there's nothing inherent, I think, necessarily about animation that's gonna condense the format. Like you could put that format into live action and still have the same information come across. I think it's the way it is presented to the audience is maybe a little different, but I don't think the movie being animated or not is really about condensing. Like really, that comes down to good writing. I think part of it is maybe is the expectation. If I'm seeing a live action movie, there's a length to it and kind of an expected kind of expository nature that I'm going to be kind of expecting to interact with. At an anime movie, maybe your expectations are lower in that regard. But there's a lot of animated movies that are not condensed. Like they are lengthy, big deals.
Mm-hmm.
That have a lot of not just running time, but a lot of expository and whatnot. So I don't think that is necessarily in relation just to it being animated. I mean, I'm not saying that that movie wasn't more condensed, but I think that was probably more of a writing and a story-driven choice on how they decided to structure the narrative, opposed to it just being animated. Like, I'm not saying it would work well live action. I mean, I haven't really put a whole lot of thought into it. I just kind of thought of the question. But I'm not really too sure if there's too much hindering it. Like, from a like effect standpoint, there's nothing super over the top that they did through animation that I don't think we could do just as well with live action. Like they've proven time and time again, you can do anything you want in live action and make it look
Mm-hmm.
pretty good. So I don't think from that standpoint it'd be an issue. I think probably the biggest issue, especially if you're building off of that, original version, is you're bringing the weight of those performances. You're bringing the Conroy, you're bringing the Hamill, and I don't know if you could ever find a substitute for that in a live action world. Like, because you can't put Hamill and Conroy on live action screen and play those
Mm-hmm.
characters. They just don't fit the visual aesthetic to it.
Well, what also could have attributed to the whole idea of condensing with this movie is the fact that, again, you have a guy like Bruce Timm co-directing it who, you know, is very tied to either the comics or to the movies. So maybe that's another benefit, is that you have someone who knows what information is important, who knows what scenes are important and what's not. Whereas maybe some of the more modern live action movies, you have more directors who aren't necessarily tied to that IP, but they're tied to just movie making. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
How
no, I do.
how you have someone who's making a movie, but just because that person is knowledgeable in how to make a movie doesn't necessarily mean they know how to take information or take scenes from comics and relay that, and relay it in shortest terms, or relay what's important or
It's a
not.
tricky thing to, because you got to think about this too. When Mask of the Phantasm came out, it was very much high off the heels of the animated series. You could probably wager just about anybody going to go see Mask of the Phantasm had
Was
already
watching the
watched.
TV show.
Yeah, so the background, expository, all the extra stuff you need to understand about the characters and whatnot, you already know going into it. And I think the expectation of your audience knowing that stuff is, it's grounded. Like, that's not, a big ask to assume that, okay, my audience is going to understand this iteration of Batman because of how popular it was at the time. But like when you look at, the brand new The Batman that just came out, they're trying to rebuild a whole new incarnation of this character in this world, so they need more time to go ahead and flesh that out. So I don't know. There's a lot that goes into it. I haven't watched Once Again Masked and the Phantasm in many, many years, so I can't really speak to exactly how I feel the pacing would be now, looking back on it. But I don't know. I don't think necessarily the length that you're talking about is attributed directly to animation. So if
Hmm.
we removed that factor, I don't know, I'm curious if you would think it would play out differently live action if that was your only concern.
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, I guess one more thing is I kind of wanted to just expound a little bit on the Joker's kind of part in the movie.
Mm.
Like, it's so kind of neat how well they incorporate him into the movie. Because it isn't just, as I was saying before, where they just drop him in. He literally does have a tie to the plot and story. And it's like, it's so cool how they kind of do it, because they do this whole scene where, essentially, again, spoilers, the Joker in the movie, basically, in his previous life, basically was a henchman for, like, this mob boss, who is, what's his name? I have his name right here. He was a Sal the Weezer Valestra, or Salvatore, or whatever. But yeah, he basically was. What's cool is that they don't really give you the background knowledge, or they don't really explain how he became the Joker, but they kind of leave that to you, where it's like, well, maybe he fell into a pit of whatever that stuff was, like however he lost his mind. But like I said, it's really cool. There's a whole scene where, like, Bruce Wayne and Alfred are looking at old pictures of the mob boss, and you see this weird guy with this weird smile in the background, and Batman picks up this little red pen or pencil and draws like a big smiley face, and the Joker's laugh, Mark Hamill's laugh, comes into frame, and it's like just the way they kind of like have scenes framed and set up. It's really cool. Let's see. But basically, I guess how the Joker gets involved is because this phantasm that shows up in the city goes around and starts killing all of these mob bosses who happen to be tied into this old gang. Joker basically gets involved because, once again, they're members of his old gang. And the cool thing, though, that I actually really appreciate about the Joker's aspect in this movie is I don't really think he gives two licks about his old gang, which is kind of just funny and cool. I mean, they make it seem as though he kind of does, but in my opinion, I think he's just involved because he wants to annoy Batman, which is really, it's the Joker is very, to me, he seems very on brand. Like he may have some sort of tie, but he's just involved just because he wants to be involved.
Yeah, well, that's always my favorite incarnation of Joker. Is like he's not about running, a big organization necessarily. It's all kind of a means to an end kind of thing. Like his deal is always going to be messing with Batman. So as long as that's kind of at the core of his character, kind of being flippant about everybody else, kind of fits his nature.
And I'll just go. Or there's a bunch of different scenes, I should say. There's like so many audio cues from this movie that like are just ingrained into my brain. Every time the Phantasm shows up to kill one of the mob bosses, all you hear is, "Your angel of death awaits, Chucky Soul," or "Your angel of death awaits, Buzz Bronsky," which is that awesome scene in the graveyard where she kills him while he's like in the pit. She kills him with the tombstone, and there's so many just cool audio cues. The angel of death awaits. There's little cues that I just like remember from this movie, like Batman stepping on the door that's sitting on this henchman, and I hear that sound, and there's the sound of Chucky Soul scream as his car's flying through the air, and I don't know, just like the way they did audio is just absolutely perfect.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I like this movie had a darker tone. Like it wasn't exactly a rated R animated movie or anything, but it definitely took a darker turn, even above and beyond where the animated series went. The animated series is already fairly dark in a lot of aspects, so nice to see them take that a little bit further for the the feature length.
Yeah, and I guess just a couple other things. I really like the scene where Batman, where Bruce Wayne is walking down the street with Andrea, and he's like started to become a vigilante, but not quite the Batman yet. And he sees this old guy getting mugged by this like group of 3 guys, and it's just an incredible scene of like Bruce Wayne being heroic, but ultimately getting his behind handed to him because he gets hit with a baseball bat, and the bad guys still get away. And there's just like a whole sense of like he can do more and stuff. Oh, and he like Superman punches this guy that's on a bike, and it's like an incredible scene. Just awesome. I guess just the last thing I wanted to talk about with this movie is overall its ending, man. Its ending is just so freaking good. Like, one thing I really appreciate, and I wrote this in my notes because I wanted to make sure I wrote it, or I talked about it, and is do you remember the future world in the movie? Like, kind of like the weird futuristic theme park that's in it? I never thought about it, but like something I caught on is like kind of the imagery that place takes within the movie. Because like earlier in the movie, it's like bright, brand new, it's open, it's shiny, and earlier in that and when it's like that, it's because like him and Andrea are like totally in love, and he doesn't feel pressured to be the Batman, and like, and it's just like it kind of just like shows where it kind of just is imagery of where their lives could have been, and then towards the end of the movie, like I really get the sense that like the place the future world starts becoming destroyed, and it looks like crap. There's like, it's dark and everything. And I get very much the sense that the imagery just like shows kind of where their lives are going, or what, where their futures are ending up, and essentially with like revenge, hate, loss, despair taking hold. I don't know. I just kind of really like that imagery.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I haven't seen those scenes in a while. You could also argue, I suppose, that because they're kind of ending up in that same location, it's kind of how, like, holding on to the past in a way. I mean, that's the whole thing.
Oh,
like,
that's
she
true.
Can't give up what she was. There's no way to move beyond that, and how, like, that's kind of like tainting her future now, and that's, I mean, how it's kind of crumbling around her, because like the whole place like exploded, didn't it?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of, I'm sure, imagery and stuff kind of taking place there that, once again, I haven't watched it long enough to probably pick up on this point, but I mean, that movie always had a great cinematic style, and just in general, the imagery they used throughout that entire series was always pretty poignant. So, no,
Dude,
definitely sold well.
I freaking love the fight scene with Joker in the miniature Gotham setup. It's so cool. Everything with that scene is just so Joker, and he's just, you could tell he's just having like the most fun time in his life. And I guess I just wanted to just mention the very last scene, which I feel like is just such an awesome closing just section. It's just such a cool way of ending it for Batman and Andrea. Like, they both have a really cool, like, bittersweet ending with both of them kind of just... They both kind of just know they're broken and that they're just kind of destined to be alone. And, like, a really cool thing is just Andrea's, like, final quote where, she's, like, on the she's, like, on the edge of this boat, and this guy... Because, you know, she like, runs away. But, and this guy comes up to her, and he's just like, I'm sorry, do you want to... Or he says, hey, how are you? And then says, oh, I'm sorry, do you want to be alone? And she just kind of, like, stares off into the water and just says, I am. And he's just like, oh, okay. And then the movie just ends with Batman sitting on top of a building, like, kind of, you can tell, kind of thinking about her, but then, like, sees the bat signal, and he just knows... I kind of added just one little note at the end of here, and I said, that's how you end a Batman movie, me staring into the screen. So you can take that as it is.
Okay, I didn't pick up on that. So
I don't know. That was my note, was that's how you end a Batman movie. But, alright. I'm looking at something. But, yeah, so, anything else you wanted to add on to it? I kind of just wanted to gush about Mask of the Phantasm. I freaking love that movie. I could talk about it anytime.
It was gross. No. No, I mean, it's solid movie. I don't think I can add anything to it. Animated series and just anything related to it will probably always be my favorite, just, you know, iteration of Batman. But just going back, I mean, I am still excited about seeing the new movie.
I'm excited for you. I hope you watch it.
Yeah. So maybe we can have a more in-depth spoiler discussion if I ever get around to sacrificing 3 hours of my life to see it. So.
Well, we can. So yeah, that was my favorite Batman movie. What did you want to take some time to talk about your own?
We can. I mean, I know we've been talking about Batman for a while, so it doesn't need to be a big conversation. Honestly, I don't know if I have a favorite Batman movie. Like,
is this more of a nostalgic pick rather than a favorite?
Yeah, like, I know you were asking which one I'd want to talk about.
I figured you would chose The Dark Knight, but...
And here's the thing, out of all the Batman movies, I think you hear this come up a lot. That's probably the best movie with Batman in it. Like, what they did with that movie was great. I mean, the plot was great, the acting was great, Ledger was great. But I think what always kind of takes me out of that movie a little bit is it's not a Batman movie. It's a Joker movie, which, don't get me wrong, it's great for what it is, but I feel like that for a lot of, you know, Nolan's movies. Like, Batman Begins a little less so. That definitely had more of a Batman focus, as you know, it probably should.
I would, not to cut you off, but I've tried to rewatch The Dark Knight a few times lately, and it just, I don't know. I feel like my liking for it has gone down. I actually feel like Begins is my favorite out of the three Nolan movies. But sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, and I don't disagree with that. Like, I don't know. I go back and forth on the Nolan, you know, trilogy. The third one definitely, you know, I'd put down at the lower end. But as far as Begins versus Dark Knight, I kind of go back in between. But even with that said, like, I don't know if there's any one thing about those movies that are my favorite Batman anything besides just the Joker being really good in those movies. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not a huge fan of Bale as Batman. He was fine.
He was just fine.
Like, his Bruce Wayne was okay. His Batman was just kind of there, like he was a suit more than anything else. I mean, he was cool to watch, and I like what they did with, you know, the evolution of the character and his suit and all that kind of stuff, but I don't know, I didn't care about Bale a whole amount. And I guess for me, if I'm thinking about any of the other Batman movies out there, once again, it's going back to nostalgia, because, you know, I was like watching this movie at the same time I was watching animated series, Batman Forever, which people, honestly, I feel like people have taken a little more favorably over recent years. I mean, there was definitely a big, you know, a push a while back that this movie is garbage, just kind of fall into that. That was still Schumacher, wasn't it? That was like his
first one. Yeah,
his first one.
He did that in Robin.
And, you know, there's definitely plenty of Schumacher all over that movie. It wasn't quite as, oh man, I'm trying to think of the politest way to say this. It didn't go nearly as far as Batman and Robin did with some of the Schumacherisms, but You know, being a kid for one, I look at a lot of that stuff, the cheesy, corny factor, a little more favorably because it was fun back then. And I will say that's what the Batman movies have lost to a certain extent. Like people always want to take Batman to the super dark, broody kind of character because you know that is at his core. But think back to the Adam West Batmans. Like there is camp built into the
Mm-hmm.
foundations of Batman, and I feel like this movie tries to find a balance between that. Like the Burton movies took a very different take, kind of a twisted, dark route to it. A little bit of camp, but not much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like Schumacher tried to bring it into that, I don't know, cartoony world a little
I think
more
that's
with,
what
the neon.
I think that's what I liked about the Batman is it definitely gets. Probably I'm sure there's people that disagree. I think it was a little bit more lighthearted, maybe not quite as much as like the Schumacher movies, but like it at least wasn't as like
You feel like the new
realistic.
one was lighthearted?
No, 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 not wholly, but
Just not as grounded. Is
it's
that
just
what you're
not as
saying?
grounded as the
Okay.
Dark Knight. Like it definitely gets kind of out there, and some of the people feel a little bit more cartoony, which I actually like. You know,
Mhm.
in some aspects, like the Penguin, or yeah, Penguin feels a little more cartoony. The Riddler feels a little bit more ridiculous. I don't know. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, no, it's fair. And I said I can't really sit here and make a big case for Forever being a good movie. I mean, I'm sure I haven't watched it in a couple of years.
I
If
just
I sat
watched it
down and
last
watched
night.
it, I'm sure I'd pick it apart. But it was fun. Even when I watched it a few years ago, even though I knew at the time this was not like a good movie, it was a fun
It's
movie.
fun. Yeah, it's a really cool watch.
Like it's colorful when it needs to be. I'll tell you, I love Jim Carrey as the Riddler. I know
He
he's
is
over the top for a
he
lot of
is the
people, but
absolute
he
best part of that movie.
he chews up the scenery,
Ah,
man. Honestly, the worst part of that movie for me is anything with
Val
freaking Two
Kilmer.
Face in it.
Oh,
No,
Two
no, no.
Face.
Yeah, freaking
Tommy Lee Jones.
yes. And don't get me wrong, I love Tommy Lee Jones, but he was so
I
miscast
think
for that
my
movie.
my okay. So I have a couple big problems with Two Face. One, he acts too much like the Joker, which
Yeah, like that's it. He wasn't Two Face at all. Like the what's the way to say this? The characters in the Schumacher movies are exaggerated. Like
mm-hmm.
Carrey's Riddler is Riddler times 1,000, right? But this Two Face didn't feel like an elaborate or
But that
expanded version of Two Face. He just felt like a completely different
but if you
character.
think about it, you could make the case that fits the Riddler maybe being that ridiculous. The
Yeah,
Two
it's
Face
the
is
Riddler
supposed to
character
be a
just
district
bumped up to
attorney.
100.
He's not supposed to be ridiculous. He's supposed to be like or was a professional person. Sorry, I keep cutting you off.
No, it's fine. I mean, I guess that's what I'm saying. Like, they didn't know how to use that character. You're right. They kind of wanted to make him a Joker sometimes. They were trying to make him compete with Carrie. Because
Mm-hmm.
here's the thing: if you tried to play Two Face closer or straighter to probably how you'd expect that character to be, he is gonna be like every scene he's in just overpowered
But
by
there's
Jim
no
Carrey.
competing with Jim Carrey though.
Yeah, I remember reading plenty of stories about how Tommy Lee Jones hated Jim Carrey. I remember his famous quote. It was I don't know if he walked out on one of the scenes, but it was like after they did one of their scenes together, he turned to Jim Carrey and said, "I can't sanction your buffoonery," and then like charged off the set, which is such a Tommy Lee Jones thing to
Yeah.
say. Um,
It
so I
just
just find that interesting.
it just seemed like such a strange casting. Like like I feel like if not well, I shouldn't say
Here's the
strange
thing too, he didn't need to be in the movie. Like it wasn't just a bad cast, but you could have had that same movie probably play out better without Tommy Lee Jones at all. I
mm-hmm.
mean, I think his only impact he really had was, taking out Robin's family, Chris O'Donnell.
Mm-hmm.
But that could have played out
You could have
a
had
bunch of
any
different
mob
ways.
boss. You could have
Yeah.
had Maroney or any mob boss do that.
Yeah, so
Um,
Two-Face was kind of wasted there, but Carrie, really solid. And I do like Kilmer. Once again, it's probably
I said that
nostalgia,
earlier.
but
I like Kilmer as Batman. I thought he was good.
his Batman is kind of boring.
Mm-hmm.
His Bruce Wayne though is not bad. Like he's kind of that kind of charmer, kind of like subdued
Mm-hmm.
billionaire. But it worked well. They definitely tried to do a little bit with the Bruce Wayne character. How he tried to for a while he was giving up Batman. He's like I can
Mm-hmm.
be Bruce Wayne. Honestly, it was kind of a similar. Story arc from Mask of the Phantasm. It was like I can be happy too. I can
Mm-hmm.
have both worlds,
Well,
and then realize he can't. Well, actually, I guess at the end he's like, I can be both. I can be Batman and Bruce Wayne. But
a really cool aspect that they play with the movie is I don't like her character, but it's really cool. Yeah, it's really cool having her in there as like a psychotherapist, or is that what? Yeah, it's really cool having her in there because it's really just interesting to see her kind of like analyze Bruce Wayne and analyze Batman whenever she's around them, because again, to wear, you know, tights and go around and beat people up, you'd have to be a pretty broken, questionable individual. So it's really cool to see her like dealing with Bruce, and like, because there's a really cool scene where there's a what is it? No, not the doll. Well, that too. But there's a really cool scene where Bruce goes into her office, and on the wall there's a, what is it? A Rorschach thing, and he goes up.
It was the same scene. Like he picks up the doll and he sees the Rorschach painting. Maybe I'm thinking something different.
Yeah, no, that's the same scene. I'm just saying, like, I like the part where he sees the Rorschach painting, and he says, "Oh, you got something for bats?" And she's like, "No, that's a Rorschach painting," meaning, you know,
you got bats on the brain.
You got bats on the brain. Yeah, so it's really cool. Like, sorry, I just want to add that.
I think I probably feel it more now in recent viewings, but I'm pretty mixed on her character. Like, I like those scenes with her and Bruce. Honestly, I think those are probably the best like character moments in that whole movie, was seeing them interact and kind of, you know, look at the psychology of Bruce Wayne versus Batman.
She's really,
at the same time, I hated her when she was all
she's all
fanboying over Batman.
Yeah, seeing her get all hot and bothered and like
that was extreme. I didn't really
need to that's a good thing to bring up. Like, yeah, it's very like, she puts up the bat signal and just shows up there like half nude.
Ready to get it on. Yeah, it was a little much. So yeah, I mean, that movie, once again, I can't sit here and argue it was a good movie. There was plenty of miscasting and like weird character arcs in there, but I will always say I think it was fun. It was definitely a movie that was made to sell toys for sure, because I had most of them as a kid.
You know what? I just thought about it. Something I didn't like about it is I very much disliked the Chris O'Donnell character. I know he's Robin, but like Bruce Wayne, what do you? He adopted like a 30-year-old man. Like, what?
Yeah, I mean they were. Yeah, I mean I don't hate Chris O'Donnell as Robin. I mean, he was fine for that world, but yeah, it was definitely a very older take for Robin. Like, it didn't feel like the Dick Grayson Robin, even though I know that's one he was playing. It probably felt like, oh man, what was the not Jason Todd?
There's Jason Todd, Richard something.
Oh, there's another one.
You don't have to try and remember.
I'm not going to. Either way, he felt like he was a different Robin, just straight up. I mean, he had the Dick Grayson name, but that
Jason
was
Todd, the one that gets kidnapped and beaten up by the
that's
Joker?
Red Hood. Yeah. But regardless, I mean, I enjoy it for what it was. I thought it was fun, and I do like that every once in a while. Not every movie has to be this, super introspective, perfectly crafted masterpiece, which I know is kind of what everybody's kind of looking at this new Batman movie to be like.
That movie is so funny.
Like, it's just kind of funny. It's fun. It's definitely something that you want to turn your mind off a little bit towards. I know some people hate that phrasing. I'm not saying you have to, ignore plot holes and stuff, but enjoy it for what it is. I think you can go into that with a more favorable mindset than you can with Batman and Robin. Like, there's far more issues, I think, with that movie from a structural standpoint, a character standpoint, that's harder to watch that movie and enjoy it. I think, at least in Forever, there's a thread of a decent movie in there and some decent acting. Yeah, I think that, that elevates it some, to where I think at least I have a favorable opinion on it looking back, 20 some odd years.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll leave it at that.
I think Forever is a much more respectable Batman film than Batman and Robin. I'm not going to go into Batman. We could do a whole episode on...
He is probably the worst Batman.
It's
George Clooney.
Ice Age. George Clooney. I think the problem with George is, like, he just didn't seem like he gave two licks about being there. Like, he just seemed like George was too cool for school, Well,
he played George Clooney. I mean, it wasn't George Clooney playing Batman. It was just Batman was George Clooney.
I think the problem is there was not a single good casting in that movie. If you
The
really
only thing that would keep me going to that movie was Arnold, man. I'm not saying it was good casting,
and he
but
sucked. He's just
was,
funny because he's Arnold, though.
and that's all it was.
I
mean,
shouldn't
at
say he
least you got
sucked. He
some
just
good,
wasn't.
memes out of the thing, but
It's just I'm just like thinking on that movie. There's not one good casting. Uma Thurman, not great. Whatever they did to Bane in that movie, not great. Like I don't know.